Evelyn Stone's morning was a quiet symphony of precision. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her, warm and comforting. She cradled the cup, savoring the rich bitterness, a moment of peace before the world called her away. As the clock ticked toward 7:30 a.m., she didn't rush, she was already in sync with the rhythm of the day. Stepping outside, the familiar brick of her building stood like an old friend. Her eyes stayed focused, scanning the path as she walked to the station, the steady hum of routine grounding her. The 8 a.m. train would be on time just as it always was. In this predictability, Evelyn found calm. The school stood quietly, tucked away between the bustling city streets, a small, familiar space where everyone knew each other. Evelyn's footsteps echoed softly as she walked through the hallways, exchanging warm smiles and brief hellos with teachers she had known for years. It was a place that felt like home, with every face a reminder of the community she had built. In the classroom, there was peace in the rhythm of the day, preparing lessons, grading papers, guiding young minds. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough. The little things, a soft thank you from a student, a nod of recognition from a colleague, kept her grounded, reminding her that this was where she belonged. As Evelyn stepped into the quiet of her apartment, the gentle ticking of the clock was the only sound, a soft reminder of the stillness that filled her evenings. She sighed, the weight of the day slipping away. She cherished these moments, these peaceful hours before Simon, her partner of nearly 10 years, returned home. Their relationship was her rock, steady, unwavering. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering their first kiss, the long hikes, the deep conversations that stretched into the night. Their bond was built on the simple joys they shared: books, movies, lazy weekends. With Simon there was never any doubt. They were a team, solid, dependable. Together they'd created a life filled with love and security. It's rare for Evelyn to wake up late, but today, the morning felt off. Rushing through her routine, barely catching a sip of coffee, she stepped into the world already out of sync. As she arrived at school, a sense of unease clung to her. Her desk, usually a comfort, felt strange, almost foreign. The papers before her, she didn't recognize them. Notes, reminders, names, none of it was hers. Her heart raced, a silent panic rising. Could she have forgotten? No, it couldn't be. She blinked, pushing the worry aside. Just a mistake, she thought. Just a small crack in her day. As Evelyn walked down the hallway, she greeted Anna with a smile, but when she tried to recall their conversation from the meeting yesterday, nothing. A blank. Panic rose in her chest, a cold shiver running down her spine. She stood there, searching her mind, but it was as if the memory had slipped away. It's just stress, she told herself, forcing a smile and moving on. But deep down something felt wrong. More of these moments were happening, each one unsettling, like a piece of herself was quietly slipping away. The world around her felt distant, blurry, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was lost, or about to be. As the days dragged on, Evelyn felt the little things she clung to slipping away. Names, once so familiar, now blurred together like smudges on glass. Faces in the hallways seemed distant, like shadows hiding behind a thick fog. The people she saw every day, her anchors, became strangers in her own life. The small slip-ups, like misplacing her keys or forgetting her phone at home, started to pile up. At first she brushed them off. They were just annoyances, nothing more. But then one day it happened. A memory, a precious one, slipped from her grasp, fading away into nothingness. And it terrified her. That feeling of dread crept in, gnawing at her as she wondered, how much longer before everything she knew slips through her fingers? The weight of it was unbearable. After a quiet dinner, Simon's voice broke the silence, soft yet heavy. Do you remember our trip to Paris? The question hung in the air, stirring something deep within Evelyn. She paused, the weight of it sinking in. Her mind raced, faint images of cobblestone streets, the Eiffel Tower glowing under the night sky, and the soft melody of French music. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, the memories slipped away like sand through her fingers. Her heart sank, a quiet panic rising. She couldn't recall the hotel, the bistro, or even Simon's hand in hers as they walked by the Seine. The uncertainty choked her, her voice barely a whisper. No, she said, the word strange, like a part of her was lost. Simon's response was immediate, his face twisting in confusion. Are you serious? We spent a week there. We took so many pictures. His eyes searched hers, a mix of disbelief and concern clouding his gaze. Evelyn's chest tightened. The blankness inside her felt suffocating. She wanted to remember, she needed to remember. Paris, their cherished milestone, was slipping through her fingers like sand. The silence between them deepened, thick with unspoken fear. Simon's voice broke through, gentle yet uncertain. Maybe you're just tired. You've been working a lot lately. But as his hand touched her shoulder, Evelyn saw it. The flicker of doubt in his eyes, a crack in the certainty that once defined their shared memories. That night, Evelyn lay in bed, staring into the dark ceiling, a suffocating silence pressing down on her. Her mind raced, a maze of questions twisting in every direction. Hours had passed as she scrolled through old photos, moments frozen in time that now felt like strangers' memories. There she was with Simon at the Louvre, laughing with a street musician, sipping coffee at a cozy cafe. But now those images felt hollow, unreal. The faces in those photos weren't hers, weren't Simon's. They were ghosts, and the life they lived felt like a dream she never shared. A wave of panic rose within her, but she fought to hold on, to the past, to the fragments of a life that seemed to be slipping away with every passing second. Evelyn sat frozen, her eyes scanning the room, but everything felt foreign. The photographs on the wall, the book on her shelf, did they belong to her? Was she sure? A cold shiver crawled up her spine. The constant gnawing feeling of forgetfulness clawed at her, deeper and deeper with every breath. Was she losing her grip on reality? The more she tried to anchor herself to the familiar, the more it slipped away. The terror grew, settling like a weight on her chest. Every object around her felt like a distant memory she couldn't quite touch. Was she losing herself? Evelyn's world was starting to slip through her fingers. One morning, in the quiet of her kitchen, she searched for her keys, always in the same spot, yet nowhere to be found. The familiar space felt foreign, a fog clouding her mind. And soon it wasn't just the keys. Her favorite song, gone. A book she had just finished, a title lost to the mist. These moments, small and scattered, became fragments of a past she couldn't quite hold on to. Evelyn's memory began to unravel. The gaps grew wider, pulling her further from the past. One afternoon, she walked into the living room, her mind frantic. When was the last quiet evening with Simon? A week ago. A month? Their anniversary, once so certain, now felt like a fading dream. The loss was deep. She couldn't remember the moment Sam graduated or even the words she spoke to him. But the hardest hit was the day she met Anna, the beginning of their friendship, now lost. Her history slipping away, leaving Evelyn adrift, lost in the fog of uncertainty. Evelyn, a woman grounded in routine, always called her mother on Sundays. But today something was wrong. As she dialed the familiar number, the voice that answered wasn't hers. It was distant, strange. "Mom? Is that you?" The hesitation, the crackle of doubt in her voice. "Of course it's me, sweetheart. Who else would it be?" But Evelyn's heart raced. Something felt off. She struggled to understand that I don't know. I don't remember your voice. The world felt like it was shifting, reality slipping just out of reach. There was a pause, then her mother's gentle laugh. But Evelyn could hear the worry beneath it. "You've been working too hard, dear. Maybe you need some rest," her mother suggested. But it wasn't rest Evelyn needed. A deep restlessness clawed inside her, refusing to be still. The edges of her reality were fraying. It was as if something invisible was pulling her away from her life. She looked around her apartment, once familiar, now foreign. A place she thought she belonged, but did she? Her memories, they seemed to unravel before her eyes. The realization hit her hard. She couldn't trust herself. Not her memories, and worst of all, not the woman she was becoming. Evelyn's relationship with Simon had begun to unravel. What was once effortless now felt strained, their conversations awkward. She saw the concern in his eyes, the subtle frustration when she repeated herself, or forgot the smallest things. "Where did I put my purse?" she'd ask, only to hear his tired sigh. The weight of these forgotten moments pressed on her, each one a reminder that something was wrong. Trapped in a life that no longer felt like her own, Evelyn felt her identity slipping away, as if she was fading into someone she didn't recognize. Even Simon's attempts to comfort her only pushed her further apart. The more he reached out, the more distant she felt. Each day she seemed to lose a little more of herself. In the stillness of the bathroom, Evelyn faced a terrifying truth. As she gazed into the mirror, her reflection seemed wrong. Her familiar brown eyes, once comforting, now appeared strange. The freckles on her nose, once a part of her, felt like distant memories. The woman before her, was she even Evelyn anymore? Panic set in as she reached out, trying to reconnect, but the more she stared, the more she questioned. Who was she really? One evening, Evelyn sat in the dimly lit living room, her mind spiraling into darkness. Simon was beside her, but the space between them felt endless. Her eyes were red from tears and her voice, barely a whisper, trembled as she spoke. "I think I'm losing my mind," she said softly. "I don't know who I am anymore, Simon." Her words hung in the air, desperate and unfamiliar, as though coming from a stranger. Simon, helpless, pulled her close, but even his touch felt distant, like a lifeline that couldn't reach her. Evelyn knew deep down she was fading away, becoming a ghost in her own life. Evelyn sat alone in the waiting room, the silence broken only by the nervous tap of her fingers. Each doctor, each specialist had given her different answers, none of them enough. Early onset dementia, stress-induced memory loss. But they didn't fit. Her mind wasn't just forgetting, it was erasing, leaving her with gaps too large to ignore. Pieces of her life were slipping away, and she was left grappling with a haunting feeling that something much deeper was at play. She was becoming a stranger in her own life. That evening, Evelyn sat in her cluttered living room, surrounded by forgotten papers, bills, receipts, and old letters. She was searching, desperate for any clue. Her hand paused on a faded envelope, and as it opened, a photograph slipped out. Evelyn studied the photo, confusion clouding her thoughts. It showed her, standing beside a man she didn't recognize, holding a small child in her arms. The park behind them was foreign, a place she didn't remember ever visiting. She flipped the photo over. The name, Benjamin, was written in delicate handwriting. The name meant nothing to her, but the unease it stirred in her chest was undeniable. Who was Benjamin? And why couldn't she remember him? Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling something was terribly wrong. As she sifted through old belongings, unfamiliar objects appeared, things she didn't remember owning. Strange photographs. Faces that should have been familiar, yet felt like complete strangers. People spoke to her like they knew her, but she had no memory of them. Her life was unraveling. Memories, identity, slipping away like sand through her fingers. Each discovery pulled her deeper into confusion. Was this reality, or a dream? The more she uncovered, the more everything seemed to crumble. Evelyn's world shattered in an instant. The truth hit her like a freight train. Her mind had been manipulated, her memories erased. She wasn't just losing herself, she was being stolen from. Someone, or something was rewriting her past, warping her reality. What had felt like terror for months, now became a chilling truth. Her identity was slipping away. Piece by piece, her life was unraveling and she was powerless to stop it. In the deepest corners of her mind, Evelyn faced the truth. Shrouded in shadows, a mysterious figure stood, knowing her every secret. Every fear, every forgotten memory. The figure spoke of her fractured soul, the erasure of her past, and the hollow shell she had become. The weight of this loss crushed her, the painful realization settling in. She might never find the pieces of herself again. And in that moment, a terrifying truth emerged. Her identity was gone, lost forever. Helpless to reclaim it. Evelyn stands before the mirror, her reflection fragmented and distant. Her trembling hand reaches out, searching for something familiar, but there's nothing. Her eyes, once sharp, now hold only emptiness, echoes of a person she no longer knows. Was she really? The name slips away, like sand through her fingers, leaving her with nothing but an unsettling silence. As Evelyn gazes at her reflection, a cold chill fills the air, and with it, a growing panic. Memories, once clear and vivid, begin to fade, slipping away like pages torn from a book. Faces, places, moments, they all dissolve into shadows. Desperately, she grasps for something, anything to hold on to, but each memory vanishes before she can catch it. Evelyn's world shifts. The mirror reflects more than just her face. The colors dull, the sounds fade, and with each step, she drifts further away from the life she once knew. Her home, once familiar, now feels foreign, like a memory slipping through her fingers. The weight of isolation presses in, leaving only emptiness in its wake. In the stillness, Evelyn stands motionless, her heart racing. A deep, suffocating fear grips her, losing herself, falling into nothingness. The world she knew crumbles around her, and she's left on the edge of an endless void, unable to escape. Each moment pulls her deeper into the darkness with no path back.